What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here. This is going to be my next update, and this is going to be the update for the end of July. I have ordered some albums online, and I've purchased quite a lot of albums on CD, so this update is going to be pretty much similar to the last update that I had done recently. So, as always, this is in no particular order on which pile I'm going to go into from the first to the very last. And also I am going to be doing a full overview of my vinyl collection very soon. So I will be doing this type of video in the next coming week. But for now, let's jump right into the update. I'll start off with the CDs first. So the first album that I purchased is Stereolab's album entitled Emperor Tomato Ketchup. I really have been intrigued to discover Stereolab so much more, and this has been regarded as one of their very best albums, or to some fans pick this as their very favorite. This is an amazing album. It's pretty much like one of those other rhythmic and memorable and some catchiest stuff from Stereolab. And they have released quite a lot of albums, and I need to really, get into the discography so much bigger. But for now, I really like Stereolab so much because of their very experimental and creative, and I guess some kind of atmospheric feel to it. So Stereolab with Emperor Tomato Ketchup. The next album is Bjerk Post. I had to purchase this because I love this record, one of my favorite albums of all time. And I have listened to another Bjerk album recently of Vespertine and also Homogenic, but this album so far is my personal favorite in Bjerk's discography. One of my favorite albums from the 90s as well, so that's why I had to purchase this. Now, the next couple of albums that you will see are by Dream Theater, and this is Train of Thought. I haven't played this one yet. I also apologize for the glaring, but this has been known as the heaviest album in their discography. So I've been coming back into Dream Theater's discography. I've heard really good things about this album, although some people at the time of its release had been giving this a lot of flack. But thankfully, it has been loved more and more. So I am absolutely going to be diving into this album. Same goes with the next Dream Theater album, which is Octavarium. Again, just like the last album, I haven't played this one yet, although I have been playing one of the albums that I've purchased from the band. And this has been something really interesting and to digest. I also love this album cover as well, but I have been very familiar with some of the songs already, but I haven't played the whole album yet. And I am looking forward to their upcoming new album, which will be out later this year, one of the anticipated ones. And the other Dream Theater album that I have is Systematic Chaos, and I have listened to this. This is a very good album, and some of these riffs to the album are really catchy, and some of the tightest, hookiest stuff of the music that's on this album, they just sound fantastic. James's vocals were amazing as usual. Some excellent tracks on here, In the Presence of Enemies, Constant Motion, to The Dark Eternal Night, amongst the others. And I think that this is definitely one of those albums that would maybe be selected as one of my favorite Dream Theater albums. But my favorite Dream Theater albums have always been Images and Words and Awake, but I am really glad to discover the later Dream Theater so far. Now, this album, this is from a band that I have heard about numerous times. I had to purchase this album. This is Husker with Candy Apple Grey. And from what I've heard, I really enjoyed this. And Husker Du are like one of those bands where they can be involved in some alternative, I guess a post-punky-ish kind of vein musically. But I have seen that one of the earlier albums has been regarded as a classic. But I decided to start with this one because I've been familiar with the album cover of Candy Apple Grey. But I really enjoyed this album, and I am looking forward to purchase some more albums from them. Now this album, this is from an artist that I've been very familiar with, and I have mentioned this artist before from an album that has been one of my favorite albums from 2020. This is 9 Inch Nails with The Fragile. And the reason why I decided to purchase this is because that EQP TV cited this as one of his favorite double albums. And this is an almost 2-hour concept album. Very dark stuff, but it does have some great, intense, atmospheric, and despairing stuff of instrumentation. So, as much as I've been really enjoying a lot of the industrial, experimental kind of stuff, 9 Inch Nails has been one of those artists that I wanted to get into. So this was the first 9 Inch Nails album that I have purchased. So yeah, that's that one. The next album, Can with Soon Over Babaluma. I had to purchase this one on CD in part of these phenomenal remasters from Spoon Records, and I had just played this album not too long ago on vinyl. Very underrated, and it is one of my favourite albums of all time. And personally, I still would play this and prefer this over Egibam Yassi. So, you know, this is just one of those albums that has a lot of its very ambient, textured, driven sounds, and these very improv, jammy kind of sounds. Does contain one of my favourite Can songs of all time. Love the tracks of Dizzy Lizzy to Splash, and the whole second side of Chain Reaction and Quantum Physics. Phenomenal stuff. The next album, this is in part of my journey of discovering the trip-hop scene, and that is Massive Attack with the 2012 remaster of Blue Lines. This album is absolutely great, and I have been corrected from one of my subscribers that Mezzanine is one of the later albums, their third album, I believe. And that album I would still prefer over this, but this does have some masterpieces on here. Safe from Harm, Unfinished Symphony, Blue Lines, Hymn of the Big Wheel, etc. And I was really glad that I decided to get into Massive Attack because I have been loving some more of that trip-hop music scene. So that is Massive Attack with Blue Lines. The next album is Third by Portishead. As much as I have really been enjoying a lot of Dummy, which I have on vinyl, I had to purchase this one because some fans would pick this as their favourite. And this is very different. This is more or less like an experimental, heavily inspired type of sounds with other genres involving some krautrock to art rock and other stuff. But I really, really like this album, and I think so far that I may prefer this album over Dummy. I need to get their second album. The next album, another Portishead, another Stereolab album. This is entitled Cobra and Phases Group Play Voltage in the Milky Night. I had to look up the title a lot of times to memorize this. But again, like the other Stereolab album and the Dots and Loops album that I've got, this is the 2-disc edition. I think this is very underrated, and at the time, this was not well regarded from fans and critics. But I really got to absorb the material, and I really, really like this type of sound. It's quite jazzy in some spots, a lot of jamming stuff on here as well. Just a lot of these really great examples of making up music as you go along kind of things. But Stereolab are now becoming one of my favorite bands, although I need to purchase a lot more of their stuff. The next album, Fear Factory with Genghistron, and this has been one of those albums that I've not been playing a lot, mainly because I don't think that this is one of their best albums, but I need to revisit this album again. This was in part of the Nuclear Blast Records label, and Fear Factory, as you already know, are one of my favourite bands of all time. Always has been one of my favourite metal bands of all time. So I had to purchase this. And the next album to complete the Fear Factory discography on CD is Concrete. Now, for those that know the album Soul of a New Machine, that album was actually not the very first album recorded. This album was, but they had to make the decision of scrapping it because they were not very happy with that type of sound that was on this. But I did play this, really like it. It's just a very early Fear Factory sound, which does have some of the industrial metal sounds, but more onto the aggressive death metal kind of sound before they've completely changed themselves into the industrial metal masters that they've become, in my opinion. But I really like this album, and some of the tracks that are on this do end up being included as re-recordings for the Soul of a New Machine album. And this was produced by Ross Robinson, a favourite producer of mine as well. So I have now all of Fear Factory's albums on CD. The next two are in part of the 2012 Frank Zappa remasters of One Size Fits All and Overnight Sensation. Overnight Sensation is just a very fun album. Lots of these comedic lyricisms, but a lot of it deals with sex to dental floss. And surprisingly, Tina Turner does make an appearance on some of the tracks on this album, but this is definitely one of the most wonderfully produced ones in Zappa's discography. Brilliant songs like Camarillo Brillo, 50-50, Dynamo Hum, to, I'm the Slime. This is an excellent album that really grew on me as one of my favourite Zappa albums. This album is no exception whatsoever. This album, One Size Fits All, has been one of my very favourite Frank Zappa albums. It's just such a massive ride. Just some of the most complex, creative, and wonderfully arranged ones. It's very progressive at the same time, as it does incorporate a lot of the wittiness and the fun, adventurous sounds. And I know that Frank Zappa is not for everybody, not for the faint of heart, like Captain Beefheart in a way, but this album is just one of my favourite Zappa albums of all time. Some of my favourites, Inca Roads, Pajama People, to, Andy, Evelyn the Modified Dog, the whole album is just near perfection. So definitely check this one out if you want to get into Frank Zappa's music. The next album, this is in part of the King Crimson 30th anniversary remasters. This is Earthbound. And I know that this was badly recorded and this was released without the band's permission. This was in part of the lineup from the Islands lineup, but I haven't listened to this one yet. But I have been very familiar with what this live album sounds like. Just not one of the best ever audio qualities of any live album. But I had to purchase this since King Crimson have been one of the bands that I've been coming back to, and one of my favourite bands of all time. So that's that one. The next album, this is Devin Townsend with the phenomenal live performance of the album entitled Galactic Quarantine. Now, the reason why I decided to purchase this is because there are two things. Number one, I was watching this entire show when it was out at stageit.com. Truly phenomenal. And number two, I decided to purchase this not only because of Devin, because of one of my favourite musicians on YouTube, which is 66 Samus from YouTube, one of my favourite drummers of all time right now, and I love his videos, and I've been watching his videos non-stop. He did work with Devin Townsend on some tracks on the Empath album, but he did play drums throughout the entirety of this show. This contains the CD version of it and the Blu-ray release. They have played some songs from his solo stuff, from the Devin Townsend project to some strapping young lad. Devin's vocals on this were just absolutely awesome on here. So if you are a Devin Townsend fan, then I urge you to purchase this one right away. So Galactic Quarantine by Devin Townsend, just phenomenal. This is in part of the Devolution series. Now the next one, this is Can with Live in Stuttgart 1975. This is more or less just a 2-disc, very much a jamming, improvisational type of show. No song from any of their albums, but this was out not too long ago, and Can are one of my favourite bands of all time. This is just a really, really good journey to just hear them jam, and I do love it when Can have been doing these improvisational jams along the way. This was at the time from the, I believe, the Soon Over Babaluma era, because this was released and in part of the Spoon Records remaster series, well, the label really. This was at the time when Damo Suzuki was out of the band. He decided to leave, but I really enjoyed this. Now this album, I just could not miss this one out. This is one of my favourite albums of all time, and I do have the Radio Gnome Invisible trilogy on vinyl. This is Gong with You. This was the very first Gong album that I've ever listened to and bought, and I fell in love with it straight away. This is a 2-disc release set, and this remaster sounds phenomenal. I have always loved listening to this, and if you want to get into Gong, Gong are a French progressive rock, space rock, and very experimental type of band from the late 60s to early 70s, and I highly recommend this album, as well as the other ones, Flying Teapot to Angel's Egg. Some of the later ones as well, like Gazoos, for example, but this album is one of my favourites of all time, and this is a remaster packaging from 2019. The last album on CD is Primal Scream's album of Screamadelica. I already have this on vinyl, but I thought, why not purchase this on CD? Because this is one of my favourite albums from the Creation Records label. As you know, Creation had been a label that have signed others from Oasis to My Bloody Valentine, etc. Primal Scream is one of those very big household names through that label as well. A really great album, just always one of my favourite 90s albums. Now on to the records. These records, well, two of them that I've ordered are from a website that I decided to sign up for and purchase records on Discogs. And the very first one that I've purchased from there is Fear Factory's Obsolete. Now this is a great addition because this album had been put to vinyl for the very first time in celebration of this album's 20th anniversary, and this is a limited gold edition vinyl, limited to 2,000 copies worldwide, and they've released this on Music on Vinyl and Relapse Records together, and that's my number, if you can see that properly. And I did listen to this, And here is the coloured vinyl. Absolutely a beautiful looking presentation. Does contain the sleeve for the story and the lyrics and other artwork. However, when I listened to this album, side 2 was incredibly noisy from the surface noise, and it was ruining the listening experience. So I was really annoyed about that. But the sound quality, when I listened to the first half, sounded spectacular. I love this album that much that I had to purchase this on vinyl. I just need to clean the record and hopefully just get rid of the crackling and the surface noise if I can. But this is just one of my favourites of all time, and it would maybe be my favourite Fear Factory album. So for the first album purchase on Discogs, I just had to purchase it on there because on eBay this type of pressing was selling for a lot of money. But thankfully I purchased this at a cheaper price. So that is Obsolete by Fear Factory. The next album is Tangerine Dream with Hyperborea. This is one of the later albums. This was from the 80s. Follow-up to, I believe, Tangram, which is a really nice album. This is an original pressing on Virgin. And Tangerine Dream is one of my favourite bands of all time. I'll show you the record. So here is side 1. Beautiful look of the record there. Here's side 2. I think that this Tangerine Dream album is very underrated. And my favourite album from them is Force Majeure. But this album, just like the other ones, very ambient-driven, electronic stuff. So I love this album cover as well. So if you want to get into some Tangerine Dream, then I recommend the 70s stuff. But look no further by listening to this one as well. So I think out of all of the original pressings of a band's discography so far, Tangerine Dream is the #1 band in terms of most original pressings. But their original pressings on Virgin have always not been very expensive. But definitely check out this album, as well as the other ones I've mentioned. Well, I'll mention some. Phaedra to Force Majeure, Rubicon, and Stratosphere, etc. Actually, this album I've purchased through Discogs, so that is 3 now. Now, this album, I was very surprised when I had discovered this, and I had to do an album review of this, which was my recent album that I've reviewed for the channel so far. And this album is Dream Weapon by Genghistron. Now, as you see here, it's on blue-coloured vinyl. They have released this album through different colours on vinyl. And if you haven't seen my review of this album, please give it a like and comment, because this is one of my favourite albums of the year so far. And it just sounded absolutely gorgeous on vinyl. Again, with a bit of the issue on the surface noise, but I have to purchase the album on CD at some point. But anyways, here is the beautiful colour of it. Just one of those albums that is totally different to what they've done previously. But look no further with this, because if you are open-minded to hear some new things from any band along the way, for new releases, Dream Weapon is a high recommendation. And this is a gatefold pressing as well. Just a really, really strong album, in my opinion. And I think that this would be placed as one of my top 5 of the year. That's just how much I have been obsessed with this album, because I really like it to discover bands with influences from others that I have loved. And Dream Weapon was just one of my very big surprises for me. So that is Dream Weapon by Genghistron. And the last album on vinyl, I have to remove the sticker from this. Because don't you hate it when people decide to put stickers to cover some corner or some part of the album artwork, which is a pain in the ass. There is another one here, but I'll remove it later in this video. This is Focus with 3. Now, I don't really want to know Focus just because of their Hocus Pocus song, but this is released on Polydor Records, and this has been regarded as a favourite for some Focus fans. So this was really cheap, so I had to purchase this, and I do cite Focus as one of the very underrated progressive rock bands, and they are from the country that I have not heard many bands in the Dutch music scene a lot lately, so I had to purchase this. So I really am looking forward to hear some more different versatile sounds of Focus's music. So that is 3 by Focus. It is a double album, and I'm looking forward to this one. Anyway, so that is that, guys. That's my update video for today, and thank you so much for watching. The next few videos will be the separate album reviews on Slipknot's discography from Mayfee Kill Repeat to All Hope Is Gone, when Joey was in the band. So it's going to be a very special short album review series. For those albums, I have some guests already to review the discography with me, so I'm very much anticipated for these reviews. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.